get what we deserve.
Greetings. I'm Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister, President and CEO of Grand Design, Inc., and welcome to the 12th installment of Grand Design, Inc.'s Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. During this experience, we will explore the role of African American civil rights activists and performing artists beginning in 1930. Without their courage to stand for the rights and justice for us all, the African American culture would not be what we are today. Let us not forget to honor those leaders whose belief in the God of freedom was so strong that freedom rings stronger and longer today. As we take our last journey with Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges, it's clear that African American music, art, science, poetry, architecture, inventions, and activism paved the way, fighting discrimination and segregation, though building and inventing products for the United States of America. In spite of slavery, abuse, and oppression, African Americans have survived hardships for decades. Traditions have evolved since arriving on American shores in 1619, blending with and giving rise to song, dance, and the arts on this planet. Now let us hear from our host, Ms. Deborah Walker.
In the 1930s, Marion Anderson, a contralto, performed a wide range of music, from classical music to spirituals. She performed with renowned orchestras in major concerts and recital venues throughout the United States and Europe between 1925 and 1965. Anderson was an important figure in the struggle for African American artists to overcome racial prejudice in the United States during the mid-20th century. In 1939, the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to allow Anderson to sing in an integrated audience in Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. The incident placed Anderson in the spotlight of an international community on a level unusual for a classical musician. With the aid of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and her husband, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Anderson performed a critically acclaimed open-air concert on Easter Sunday, April 9, 1939, on the Lincoln Memorial Steps in the Capitol. She sang before an integrated crowd of more than 75,000 people and a radio audience in the millions. This opened the door for well-known African American singers from William Warfield to Jesse Norman to Leontine Price, who have all made history in the exclusive world of opera. Paul Leroy Robeson, bass baritone concert artist and stage and film actor who became famous both for his cultural accomplishments and his political activism. Educated at Rutgers College and Columbia University, he was a star athlete in his youth. He also studied Swahili and phonetics at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London in 1934. His political activities began with his involvement with workers and anti-imperialist students whom he met in Britain and continued with support for the Republican cause in the Spanish Civil War and his opposition to fascism. In the United States, he became active in the civil rights movement and other social justice campaigns. On December 5, 1935, with the support of the leaders of 28 noble Black women organizations, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune responded to the need to harness the leadership and the power of African American women by founding the National Council of Negro Women, NCNW. Dr. Bethune envisioned an organization of organizations that would improve the conditions of Black women and their families nationally and internationally. During the 1930s, as a newly formed organization, NCNW organized educational programs and launched a number of national efforts. For example, in 1938, the NCNW sponsored a conference on governmental cooperation in the approach to the problem of Negro women and children. Following that conference, Dr. Bethune and representatives of the NCNW would regularly visit the White House to speak with the needs for more Black women, administrators in upper-level government positions. From opera to jazz to dance, the 1935 and 40s brought artists from all around the United States, took the A train to Cotton Club, legendary nightclub in the Harlem district of New York City, that for years featured prominent Black entertainers who performed for white audiences. The club served as the springboard to fame for Bessie Smith, Empress of the Blues, Josephine Baker, Lead Belly, Louis Armstrong, the Berry Brothers, Nat King Cole, Lena Horne, Duke Ellington, Chuck Webb, Count Basie, Fat Waller, Ethel Waters, Cab Calloway, Catherine Durham, and the Mill Brothers, and Nina Mae McKenzie. They all made a statement with their musical talent, fighting against racism, but could not be stopped from creating beautiful music with their extraordinary talent. The Cotton Club operated during the United States era of Prohibition and Jim Crow era racial segregation. Black people could not initially patronize the Cotton Club, but the venue featured colored artists.
Hey folks, here's a story about Minnie the Moocher. She was a low-down hoochie-coocher. She was the roughest, toughest frail. Minnie had a heart as big as a whale. Heidi, 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 ho! Heidi, 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 ho! Yeddy, 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 yeddy! Yeddy, 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 yeddy! Whoa! Heidi, 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 ho! Heidi, 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 ho! racing horses. Each meal she ate was a dozen courses. Had $1 million worth of nickels and dimes. She sat around and counted them all 1,000,000 times. Hattie, 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 Hattie.
Langston Hughes was an American poet, social activist, novelist, playwright, and columnist from Joplin, Missouri. One of the earliest innovators of the then new literary arts form called jazz poetry. Hughes is best known as a leader of the Harlem Renaissance. He famously wrote about the period that the Negro was in vogue, which was later paraphrased as when Harlem was in vogue. Lincoln Theodore Monroe, Andrew Perry, better known with the stage name of Stephen Fetchit, was an American comedian and film actor considered to be the first black actor to have a successful film career.
Do you like that, Mr. Flowers? Like me?
What?
Make your face look like mine?
Give me that razor.
I wanted to get that one, but
Come on. Stand over here and hold it up. Hold it up. Now down. Hold it so I can see.
Mr. Flowers, can I finish that, please?
Whose face am I shaving, yours or mine?
Yours, I think, 'cause mine ain't bleeding.
Hattie McDaniel, an American actress, singer, songwriter, and comedian, was the first African American to win an Academy Award Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind.
You've been brave so long, Miss Scarlett. You just gotta go on being brave. Think about your Paul like he used to be.
I can't think about Paul. Can't think of anything but that $300.
Ain't no good thinking about that, Miss Scarlett. Ain't nobody got that much money. Nobody but Yankees and Scalawags got that much money now.
Red.
Who that? A Yankee?
Oh, Mammy, I'm so thin and pale, and I haven't any clothes. Scoot up the attic, Mammy, and get down Ma's old box of dress patterns.
What you up to with Miss Ellen's Portiers?
You're gonna make me a new dress.
Not with Miss Ellen's Portiers, not while I got breath in my body.
Great balls of fire in my portieres now. I'm going to Atlanta for that $300, and I've got to go looking like a queen.
Who's going to Atlanta with you?
I'm going alone.
That's what you think. I was going to Atlanta with you in that new dress.
Now, Mammy, darling.
No use to try to sweet-talk me, Miss Scarlett. I knows you ever since I put the first pair of diapers on you. I said I was going to Atlanta with you, and going I is.
During World War II in the 1940s, the Tuskegee Airmen were the first Negro military aviators in the United States Army Air Corps. Trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama, they flew more than 15,000 individual sorties in Europe and North Africa during World War II. Bessie Coleman was an early American civil aviator. She was the first African American woman and also the first Native American to hold a pilot's license. The music and arts took on another flavor with new artists, such as Mahalia Jackson, the American gospel singer. Possessing a contralto voice, she was referred to as the Queen of Gospel and became one of the most influential gospel singers in the world and was heralded internationally as a singer and civil rights activist.
Oh, don't move the mountain. Give me strength to climb. No, don't move my stumbling block. Lead me on. No. believe that you have mercy, Lord. Lord, don't you move the mountain. Just give me strength to climb. Lord, don't move my stumbling block. Lead me on down. The way may not be easy. You didn't say, Lord, that it would be. But when our tribulation get to light, we tend to stray from thee. Have mercy. Please don't move the mountain. Just give me strength to climb. Lord, don't move my stumbling block, but lead your child on the right.
Other artists included Harry Belafonte, Ella Fitzgerald, Adelaide Hall, Dorothy Dandridge, Mildred Dixon, Madam C.J. Walker, and Hosea Williams. And of course, we must remember Billie Holiday, better known as Lady Day, who broke the color barrier with her classic song, Strange Fruit.
Blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
In the 1950s, school integration began to take place with Brown versus Board of Education. The case originated in 1951 when the public school district in Topeka, Kansas refused to enroll the daughter of a local black resident, Oliver Brown, at the school closest to their home, instead requiring her to ride a bus to a segregated black elementary school further away. The Supreme Court outlawed segregation public education facilities for blacks and whites at the state level. The massive effort to desegregate public schools across the United States was a major goal of the civil rights movement. However, compliance with the new law was glacial at best, and it took years with many cases in lower court to enforce it. NAACP leader Joel and Arthur Spingarn had strategized to bring local lawsuits to court, arguing that separate was not equal and that every child, regardless of race, deserved the first-class education. These lawsuits were combined into the landmark Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case that outlawed segregation in schools in 1954. But the vast majority of segregated schools were not integrated until many years later. Many interviewees of the Civil Rights History Project recount a long, painful struggle that scarred many students, teachers, and parents. Most people remember the Little Rock Nine was a group of 9 African American students enrolled in Little Rock Central High School in 1957. Their enrollment was followed by the Little Rock Crisis, in which the students were initially prevented from entering the racially segregated school by Orval Faubus, the governor of Arkansas. Thurgood Marshall was the first Black lawyer and civil rights activist who served as Associate Justice for the Supreme Court of the United States from October 1967 until October 1991. Prior to his judicial service, he successfully argued several cases before the Supreme Court, including Brown versus Board of Education. Other artists and entertainers launched their careers. Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Eartha Kitt, Sam Cooke, Afeez Shakur, Zora Neale Hurston, Dana Washington, Richard Wayne Penniman, better known as Little Richard, Miles Davis, Nina Simone, Marvin Gaye. The civil rights movement continued to rise in the 1960s, with men like Medgar Evers, a civil rights activist whose murder drew national attention. Born in Mississippi, he served in World War II before going to work for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. The March in Mississippi was the March Against Fear and a major 1966 demonstration in the civil rights movement in the South. Activist James Meredith launched the event on June 5, 1966, intending to make a solitary walk from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi via the Mississippi Delta. During this era, there were also the March on Washington with Martin Luther King and, of course, Ralph Abernathy and Rosa Parks. This was also the era of artists such as Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Della Reese, Albertina Walker, Mavis Staples, Sidney Poitier, Muhammad Ali, Tina Turner, Sammy Mayfield, Sammy Davis, Gregory Hines, Maya Angelou, Arthur Ashe, Dick Gregory, Ralph Boston, June Tyson, and the Big Six, who included Martin Luther King Jr., James Farmer, John Lewis, A. Philip Randolph, Whitney Young, and Roy Wilkins, who became president of the NAACP. The Black Panthers and Stokely Carmichael brought a new realization to the 70s, a civil rights frustration that showed a force of anger in the community. Stevie Wonder, who is an American singer, songwriter, musician, and record producer, stepped up to sing peace in the fight for justice. Wonder is one of the most successful songwriters and musicians, a virtual one-man band with his use of synthesizers and further electronic musical instruments. He reshaped the convention of like the Jackson 5, Ella Baker, and many other artists today.
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. Very superstitious, letters about to fall. 13-month-old baby, broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck, the things in your past. When you believe in things.
Shirley Chisholm was an American politician, educator, and author. In 1968, she became the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress, representing New York's 12th congressional district for 7 terms from 1969 to 1983. Chisholm became the first Black major party candidate to run for the President of the United States in the 1972 U.S. presidential election, making her also the first woman ever to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. Our history is long and rich, and our communities continue to shape America. Now for concluding remarks, let's hear again from Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister.
Thank you, Deborah, my wonderful producer. Discussing race in our society today, we are still in the struggle, advocating for our young African Americans who really don't understand the hardships and sacrifice that many of our ancestors made. The fight from the N-word to Negra to colored to Negro to Black to African American. The struggle is highly emotional and can diminish our self-esteem or encourage us to continue to fight for change. There are artists and activists who have certainly broken barriers, endured extreme, overt, and even subtle racism, have been banished from the mainland, and still have achieved acclaim in their careers. Oftentimes, in order to break the barriers of institutionalized racism, all of our support is needed. This includes our installment of Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges, the role of African American civil rights activists and artists. The struggle will continue until equality is achieved. Please remember to tune in again as we continue the series, A Journey of Our History, Heritage, Culture, and Triumph. Thank you to our civil rights activists and performing artists who stood in the gap for our equal rights. Whatever you do, continue to be active in your community and make a difference. And keep on producing our music and influencing all our music. To contact Grand Design Inc., and we hope you will, go to our email at granddesigninc@comcast.net or our website at grandbydesign.org, or call us at 303-693-8348. Blessings. Ciao.
Hey folks, here's this story about Minnie the Moocher. She was a low-down hoochie-coocher. She was the roughest, toughest frail. Minnie had a heart as big as a whale. Heidi, 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 ho! Heidi, Heidi, Heidi,